Is the greatest truth teller inside of the economy. It is giving you warning signs from just about every direction. I have tried to share this information many times on my channel. Working at the lumber yard, being in the retail space, living in the Pacific Northwest, I know mill operators, truck drivers, other distribution networks and hubs and retailers out there. There's really no corner of this market that I cannot see. And when I tell you that the lumber market is in devastation right now, it is not doing well. And I've been reporting on this through mill curtailments and inventory depletions that I have recognized not only from the firsthand boots on the ground perspective, but then also trying to share within the articles that we're finding out there on the mainstream media. Never have I ever, in all the years that I have been doing YouTube, have I ever seen anybody get the lumber story accurate when it comes to what it is that I have seen personally and what I have experienced, not only from the retail space, but then also being in the industry from the location that I am in the Pacific Northwest. Now, understanding that lumber is a key indicator to the economy. If the economy is doing well, if people are working, if there is a lot of business activity, you will see a high demand for lumber. With all things being equal, if there is low demand for lumber, it is showing a sign of very weak economy that has taken place. And I can tell you now, it's about as slow as I have ever seen it. Now, I can look at the numbers at my store comparatively to the previous years, and I can say honestly, like the number itself, as far as like how much I've done in dollars, isn't that far off from what I had done in the past. But the actual amount of transactions that I have done has dropped, and that's a sign that there is a definite price increase that has taken place without with less transactions that are happening. So you if you think about it in the sense that there has been an inflationary pressure that has occurred, when it comes to most items out there within the building industry, I would absolutely say yes. But the lumber itself has not. That price is very low comparatively to what it was during the pandemic. And even comparatively to what it was prior to the pandemic, I am selling 2x4 standard and better now cheaper than I have for years. And there was times that it was cheaper than it is now, and just even in the recent times. And it definitely had been cheaper in the distant past. But at 2018, when lumber had peaked out to its all-time highs at that point at $650 per thousand, I was selling a 2x4/8 standard and better, just regular old lumber, basically the most common thing that you would find at a lumber yard. I was selling it for over $4 a piece. Today, they're at $3.80, far cheaper than they had been in the past. Now, when it comes to doors and windows and siding and all the nails and screws and everything else that goes with it, that stuff definitely has not come down in price. Those things are elevated, and all the rest of the costs that now go into what it is that most people had thought of as far as a project goes are now going to be far more expensive than they had ever been. This is one of the reasons why it is that you see like the issues with construction now taking place, is that the material costs, labor costs, land costs, and everything that goes into it doesn't really give people the advantage that they would at least hope for when they can then build a project and then sell that project off into the future and make a profit off of it. If this is becoming a struggle, then they're going to pull back on their new starts. And this is what we are now experiencing within the economy, is that people are pulling back dramatically on those new starts, on the permit issuance, on even doing like remodels. I live in an area that is really old. Astoria is hundreds of years old, and it's in a constant state of repair. So the idea of doing remodels or maintenance is a very constant thing that is happening here. And it's not like there's a lot of lumber yards in our area to go to. When I hear the phone calls are getting less, when I see less people coming in, when I have less bids for doors and windows or replacements, this is a slowdown in economic activity that is definitely prevalent within the broader economy out there when you have such a slowdown in just people working on their dwellings. Like, you think about it, a if you have a feeling that things are going well, then most likely you're going to improve your surroundings. I mean, that's pretty common for anybody. Like, you're going to wear nicer clothes, you're going to eat better food, you're going to improve your dwellings, drive nicer cars, stuff like that. So when you see the slowdown taking place and people improving the dwellings that they are living at, just even with new paint, just the idea of just changing the color or brightening the place up, when this slows down, it's showing, all things being equal, that the economic activity that is happening out there is very suppressed. Now, this is what we experience for the most part when you think about 80% of the people that you're talking to. Okay? And this is how most of the people are going to probably see it, is that it's very slow, very cumbersome, it's difficult out there. And I would definitely agree. Now, when you think about something that else is happening here, is that there is consuming that is happening. And where is that taking place? In the absolute necessity, right? People who have no other choice, like, their roof is leaking and they got to buy something to repair the roof with. They have no other choice but to do that. And then you have a group of people who don't really care what the prices are. They want to take advantage of their money that they have and improve their dwelling regardless of the situation. Very few people would be in that particular situation right now, that they would be that having that sort of feeling of the economy. But there are people who do. And that's where I think a lot of times we end up seeing this disassociation between what is actually happening within the economy and generally what people are feeling. See, like lumber is about the most blue collar thing that you could ever think of, right? Like everything about it is blue collar. And the logging operations, the mill operations, the trucking operations, the retail operations, the assembly operations of all that lumber, everything about it at 100%, right? But the entire activity is essentially a luxurious experience. People don't want to believe that homes now are a luxurious experience, but that's exactly what they are. Yeah. I mean, it was even, I was reading in a X post from Graham Stevens, who was saying that, back in the day that, essentially a house was a plywood box, and now they're full of granite and fancy, cabinets and flooring and all kinds of stuff. They're not the same cheap little home that was built back in the day. So when people say, oh man, this house, back in the 70s only cost, however many hours of a living wage in order to buy it, but it wasn't the same type of house that they build nowadays. And a lot of times you'll find people say that, oh yeah, they build them cheaper now than they used to back in the day. And I would agree in a lot of sense. In the building materials that are used may be a bit shoddy in that sense, but it really comes down to the carpenter who put that building together. That's really the difference inside of it. See, now back in the day when you had just a plywood box, essentially, a very cheap single wall constructed home that was essentially slapped together very quickly, they are not the heavily engineered products that are now built today. There's a huge difference inside of them. And when I think about that, I think about it in the same sense of like maybe even automobiles, right? When you have automobiles back in the day that were built in such a way that the average person could pretty much work on it if they just had even a little bit of understanding of mechanics, you could work on even a brand new car that was built. I'm talking back in like the 60s, 70s, maybe even going into the 80s and possibly the 90s. But after that, the computer systems and everything that went into these vehicles has made them to the point that the average person could no longer work on them. They become a luxurious experience. They weren't a luxurious experience when the average person could go and get a wrecker and then rebuild that thing and have a vehicle to drive around. Right? It wasn't necessarily a luxurious experience. Sure, it was a luxurious thing to have, kinda, in a way, but just about anybody could do it if they had their mind set to it. Nowadays, there's no way that you're going to go and get a vehicle and then work on it yourself. These vehicles are just far too complicated for the average person to just twist some wrenches on. You need a whole shop of tools and computers and everything else in order to work on these things. It's just no longer a simple item for the average person to have. It's a very luxurious experience. So cars and houses are sharing somewhat of a very similar time within the economy, in that the idea that what they are actually putting together is not something for the average everyday person to acquire. If it was, it would look like a plywood box. Or it would be similar to a go-kart. You get what I'm saying here? It's not a plywood box and it's not a go-kart, but you get where I'm saying here is that they're so complicated now, and such amount of effort and time and energy and understanding and technical capabilities that need to go into this thing just don't make it available for the average person any longer. And this is the unfortunate consequences that we now see within this economy. It's only going to get worse as time goes on. I hear all the people who talk about, oh man, well, if we did, concrete homes, if we did all these, different things, and they have all these ideas about what it is that could happen. And I'm thinking, well, if that was the case, then go do it. If it was efficient enough and there was profit inside of it, then go do it and it would happen. To understand that there is no position in which that there is a return to the average working class blue collar individual in order to acquire the things that had the American dream, that was that was from a time long ago. It's now a luxurious experience to have that American dream. I mean, I don't like it to be that way. I don't want it to be that way, but there is no better proof of it than taking place within lumber. Lumber was a very blue-collar thing from beginning to end. Like, even the customer was a blue-collar customer who would work at a gas station, buy a little chunk of land, stop at the lumber yard on the way home, and piece together a house. That was the way it used to be. If that's the way it used to be, there would be plenty of homes for people to buy. There would be plenty of homes for people to build. There'd be plenty of homes for people to live in, because the average everyday person actually had a shot at being able to assemble a home on their own. Just like they were able to get a car from the wrecker and fix that thing up over the summer. When these things switch into a luxurious experience, the average everyday person is now priced out of it. They don't get that experience anymore. Instead, what they are going to end up suffering with is the apartments, the cubicle, the little tiny itty bitty dwelling that they now have to suffer with, and thinking, man, what is it that happened to the American dream out there, not realizing that it became a luxurious experience. And again, there's no better evidence of it than within the lumber industry. You're watching now, lumber is becoming a luxurious item. Like, who would need it? It's not the average everyday person. I mean, they need it, don't get me wrong. The average everyday blue-collar person definitely needs that lumber to build themselves a house, but they don't have the capabilities anymore. Who is it that's buying lumber? It's the rich. The rich who are building homes. Because it's a luxurious experience now, and lumber has moved into that luxurious experience. It's sad to see it go. It's sad to see it happen this way. Knowing that a building material as common as lumber is the indicator of what it is that most people are going to experience as far as a healthy economy, a strong economy, a resilient economy, one that has the ability to have the people feeling like they are encouraged to acquire the things that they want in their life. And lumber is the absolute indicator of all that. If you are putting these things together, if you are putting lumber together, you are showing signs of economic activity and growth. That's not happening today. I'm watching it slowly fading away, and it's not even really slowly. It's actually happening quite quick. It's just most people don't see it. Right? They'll see it once it's too late. Once they go out there to try and find something to once they go out there and they realize that the environment has shifted in the ability to then acquire a permit or start a structure and then put that structure together and profit, when that moment comes, people are going to find that there is really just not that much lumber out there. And it's going to be a very devastating moment for them. As they have signed contracts, expectations of being able to acquire the lumber at a cheaper price is going to end up fading away, and then they won't have it. Right? It'll be gone. All right. All-nighter will send you an email. Okay. I agree. In the future, only very rich will live in houses, 15-minute cities. Well, it's just, I mean, it's not that only the rich will live in houses. It's just that it's growing to the point that there is just not the capabilities of the average everyday person in order to acquire the house. And this is where I think, like, a lot of times it just ends up being like this idea that it's just impossible for them to acquire. And I don't believe that necessarily to be the case. I think if you are planning on just using a day job to acquire it, then it's probably going to end up being very difficult, because the day job that used to do it won't. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it with just your blue collar day job. Like that's not true. Like, you're not out of it. What you have to do is you have to be very strategic on how it is that you plan on doing that going into the future, like acquiring a home. House hacking is probably going to be the easiest way for most people who have just a regular job to do it. And that's essentially to get other people to live on the property and pay for that house. Live in the basement, live in the garage, live in the shop, live someplace else, and then let somebody else live in the house. You live on the property and let them pay for the property. That is probably going to be the easiest way for most people out there who don't have the capabilities of buying a house to actually get in a house. House hacking I know it's for a lot of people, it's very like almost depressing thought to acquire a piece of property and then not to get to experience the joy of living in the house or enjoying any of that part of it. But it's not a matter of I mean, I guess it is a matter of enjoying your life, but to me it's a matter of acquiring the property itself. Like if you become the property owner, you are going to position yourself into a much better area than the people who don't. And it's really going to come down to property ownership and asset allocations. Like if you can get into assets of some sort. Now, right now, a lot of people are looking at things like silver and just like, yay, right on, watch the silver run. To me, like, I would much rather be in an asset that pays a dividend, pays a rent, a business or something of that nature. Something that is going to not be a speculation. Silver's a speculation. Even though it runs up in price, hey, that's great. You can sell it off and get a profit for it, but then what do you do with that money? You're going to have to deploy it into something that's going to have a return at some point. Again, buying a business, buying rental properties, buying into stocks, bonds, something of that nature. That is the direction in which that people have to go. Like, you have to take on a capitalist mindset. There is no way that the worker is going to make it. Like, rise of the power of the worker and stuff like that. Hey, sounds great, wonderful, socialistic mindset. Okay, hey, I mean, it makes it feel good, I guess. I don't know, but there's nothing that's within history that I have studied when it comes to economics and how the separation between the rich and the poor occurs, that's going to get reversed. That is a rise of the people when they were industrious. They rose as a manufacturing powerhouse, produced the world's greatest stuff, sent that stuff out to the world. The world sent in their money, and they and they were able to raise their standard of living. Right then, that power of the worker mentality, all that other stuff. Hey, that sounds wonderful, right? And I mean, what a great experience to have, right? To be able to work a factory job and not even really have to work that hard at paying attention to what you do. Just show up every day and be somewhat disciplined, and everything was going to be just hunky dory. Dude, I love the idea of it, man. What a wonderful experience. Okay, that's gone. It's out the door. It's gone. It's not coming back. There's no way of even believing that it's going to come back. And people who do believe it are usually wishful, hopeful people of an idea that is something that is going to save them, and they are not trying to save themselves. And that's the unfortunateness that I hear coming from like people who are like promising all this wonderfulness that comes from like stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. And I laugh at this idea, because anytime I've ever looked at that through history, it's never been very successful. Like, I mean, you might get a little blip in time in which that is like, oh, look at this narrow window of awesomeness that occurred for 10 years, or whatever. But then, you see the demise, because you can't prove it in any case throughout history in which that there was going to be any kind of successful economy that is everlasting. It's a rise of power due to an industrious people. When they rise in that power, that rise of power then gives them the ability to raise their standard of living. If they raise their standard of living, it's going to get on. It's going to be on, right? The luxurious experience and eventual demise. It's going to happen every single time. So it's easy to recognize it when you just kind of go back through history and then not try to find excuse or blame for why it is that we are suffering the consequences of what we are. Just know that the consequences of the working class blue collar position was going to fail eventually when the industriousness of the people had risen that standard of living. And I know I repeat myself a lot on this channel when I talk about this, but when I see so much communication out there, especially especially when it comes to a lot of the mainstream media and a lot of the online, economists out there who are describing the situation. Most of them are failing to recognize it from this working class position and the consequences that we are now in. If, like, to try and say, oh, we just need to bring you a living wage, it's just like, you need to bring me a living wage. Good luck with that. What I need to do is figure out how it is that I can live with the wage that I have and then get extra income, cut back in my expenses, and deploy that extra income towards asset allocations, property ownership, businesses, or education. Because without doing that, it's going to be a very difficult road to go down. And anybody who is promising you anything different, like a living wage kind of promise, is literally delivering you false hopes. There is nothing that they can do to bring that back, because they are not addressing the Cantillon effect. They are not addressing the fact that the ever-increasing amounts of new money that is poured into the system, and given the people who have acquired that new money the ability to position themselves in an elevated stance with that asset allocation that has now risen so high that the people who are now working every single day are not able to then live a decent life on that wage. It's just like that separation has driven it too deep for the average everyday person to now use it for their advantage. It's hard to explain for people in a single video, but when I bring this stuff up regularly, the more people hear it, the more the people think about how it is that new money has come in and what it is that the people have done with that new money. Some people have acquired cash flowing assets, and other people acquire a Lexus. Think about what happens to those two different people. If you had bought a house and then rented that house out, and that house is now paying the mortgage and giving you a little bit of cash flow, tell me how awesome of a position that is that you are in, as opposed to driving the Lexus wondering if you're not going to be able to make the payment this month. Think about, those are the two positions in which that people deal with the debt. And when they go down that road, this is the unfortunate consequence of what we now face, is that houses and cars and everything else are so what am I trying to say here? The available ability to acquire it, right? It's just like, it's there, it exists. There's, it's possible, but the only way to actually get it is to take on an incredible amount of debt, which will drive you down onto the bottom side of the wedge, or to have acquired so much in asset allocations that you can now buy into that experience. Either way, right, it's not for the average everyday worker anymore. Like, they can't go and just get a job and then, be able to go and buy a car, just like save for a couple of years and buy a car. It doesn't work like that anymore. Right? It's just simply gone. All right, 189 people. We got any question statements? All right, plays certainly don't have universal health coverage. Okay, all homes should be built to have separate living spaces so you can rent out a basement or second story, split the duplex, all homes. Yeah, see, I mean, it sounds great, but the thing is like, that's not something that a luxurious, experienced person is going to want. They don't want to rent out their house. They say they should come with the house. Sure, yeah, so long as it's like for my mother-in-law or something like that. But I'm not renting out a piece of my property. I'm enjoying the luxurious experience. You see what I'm saying? I was just like, this is where the rich people are spending their money. It would be wonderful if they thought about the poor, unfortunate, lower class individuals, to provide them with a decent way of life so that they can have an enjoyment in their experience as much as the rich are enjoying their experience. But unfortunately, human nature will not do that. All right? The people who have the money don't want you living on their property. They don't even want you living on your property next to them, right? They want to buy that property and kick you off so they don't have you living next to them. That's what the luxurious experience does. It doesn't make it easier on you. It makes it harder on you, because the people who want the luxurious experience want you out of it. They don't want you part of it. And that's, again, it's human nature that's doing it. It's not, I mean, we can get mad at them for it, or we can just understand that's just the way it is. There should not be any building codes or regulations regarding dwelling that you build yourself. There should never be a property tax that continues well after you pay the property. True, regulation should be for those who get profits so they don't take advantage of the buyers, but when you're building for yourself, you get to set the safety standards you have to live with. Forget the way it is, tax the wealth. I paid 40,000 cash for a really cool move-in ready 1890s commercial storefront with 2 apartments above in Grand Rapids, Michigan back in 2017. Now it's worth 1.2 million. Sometimes a cold drink of water is a luxury. Yeah, think about that, right? Pretty sure nobody really had an issue in paying taxes historically. It's been the taxation without representation that it has been. Who's up here? What if you're the guy renting and get ahead because of all your money is building someone else's equity, not your own? That can't work in the long run. No, it can't work for you, but that's the way it is. Right? And nothing lasts like anybody who's trying to build an economy or think that there's an economy or there's a system that is everlasting is going to suffer the consequences of that. There is no system that is everlasting. It is cyclical. Guaranteed. No doubt about it. Will come to an end. Right? Very little chance of success. The reason is, it's because it has a lifespan to it just like anything else. When you rise as an industrious person, you will increase your standard of living. You will then force competition, right, in, who is going to do your job cheaper than you will. And you will then be in a position in which that if you do not figure out a way to become more industrious, to figure out ways of getting new money in order to maintain your standard of living, you will fail to the competition out there who is going to do it cheaper than you. That happens. I don't care if you're an individual, a corporation, a municipality, an entire country. It doesn't matter how you look at that. If you rise as an industrious person, people, country, whatever, you will increase your standard of living. If you increase your standard of living, you are moving into a luxurious experience. If you move into a luxurious experience, you are going to raise the prices of everything. If you raise the prices of everything, you will have foreign competition coming in and kicking out the domestic manufacturers. If ever increasing amounts of new money continue to pour in, you will have major separation between the rich and the poor, who then will not be able to reverse anything out there until the new money turns off and everybody falls into poverty and misery. That's the way it goes. Now, we are in a spot in that cycle in which that back in the 70s, we should have returned all the gold back out there to the world. There should have been a redistribution of wealth. That's what the Cantillon effect would have done, right? Once you have positioned yourself with all the gold and you have risen your standard of living, now you buy foreign competition. You buy in the production of a foreign nation, and then you export all your gold out there to the rest of the world. That's the equilibrium that takes place, a concentration of wealth and a redistribution of wealth. This happens regularly. Right? Until you sever the gold standard and you say, well, no, we're just going to go on this 100% fiat currency. Promise we won't print too much, right? Well, that's obviously not going to work forever, but it does bring in new money. And if that new money comes in, you're going to have a continuation of the problems that we were facing even when we were on the gold standard, and that is exporting money and importing foreign production. That's the reason why it's going to be so difficult to bring manufacturing back to the United States. It's because we are importing stuff and exporting money. It's Triffin's dilemma. The moment that we try not to do that, our dollar strengthens and our exports, the few that we do have, become so expensive for the rest of the world, they can't buy it from us. We are literally forced to do this. Nobody really recognizes it because never really once, and out of all this stuff that I hear about tariffs, do I hear anybody talk about Triffin's dilemma, right? But it's a major problem that we face here in this nation within the economy. And again, all the high-speed economists, the Trump administration, nobody talks about Triffin's dilemma, but it's a real situation we now face. What are you going to do about it, right? You got to recognize the situation that we now face, and knowing that bringing manufacturing back, it would be such a horrible experience for most people that they would never vote for it, because you would have to lower your standard of living in order to compete against somebody else who's sleeping on the ground. Otherwise, you have to have ever increasing amounts of government intervention, subsidies and tariffs, and the moment that they get out of the way, boom, there goes your job. So you're reliant on a government. It's like there is no better way of being a socialist than to beg the government to inflict tariffs and subsidies on your business, on your company. Because then now you're absolutely reliant on them. Because you're not a profitable company. The only reason why you exist is because of this government intervention. And the moment that they get out of the way, you're done. All right. Renting is great when half the equity gets sucked out of the people's houses. What am I saying is there are people out here who just don't think to buy a home because their parents never did. Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's unfair, right? It's not fair that they didn't get the mental picture of trying to work to become a property owner or learn any of the steps on how to do that, nor was given any kind of opportunity in life to actually study such a thing. Very unfair. That sucks. Too bad. I don't know what to say, man. There's a lot of things in life that aren't fair. It's just not fair. I get it. So once we understand that it's not fair, then you have to think about it for yourself. Some people out there are going to screw it up, not do it right. They're going to do the wrong thing, and we can't blame them for it. It's just they're doing the best they can at the consciousness at the level that they are at. But if you know what's happening and you choose not to do something about it, then it's your own fault. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's your own fault. If you recognize the Cantillon effect, if you recognize how the Federal Reserve is using credible threats, if you recognize all these things and choose not to do anything about it, it's your own fault. If you don't know what to do, that's fine. Like, nobody knows exactly what to do. But if you take it in and you consider the situation, you think about what it is that you are doing with your experience, you are looking to try and chase that excellence and try to avoid the pleasurable experiences, cutting back on your expenses and moving that money towards some sort of asset that is going to have a return. I guarantee you're going to screw some of that up, but then you're also going to be successful at it, and you're going to learn the lessons that you need in order to be in that, that position of abundance that, then has you feeling good about your life. I don't know how, I don't know how else to say it. Owning real estate is a good investment, but do consider the maintenance expenses that can add up quickly. It's still better than renting. I don't know if it's necessarily better than renting, right? I think you really have to take this again, how is it that you have positioned yourself? Like, if you are 100% in assets and you have zero liabilities, doesn't that sound good? Like, just say it out loud. I'm 100% in assets and zero liabilities. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, it very well could be the case that you would be renting. Because then you would have 100% assets and literally a 30-day liability. Like, at the end of 30 days, you can just call it quits and say, I'm done. And then you can move on. That is a hell of a cool position to be in, especially if you need to be nimble to move to a different location in order to make money someplace else, or just, find a better opportunity in anything out there. To be locked in on a mortgage, right, does not give you the ability to be nimble. I'm suffering that right now. People say all the time, it's like, how come you don't take part in, like, rental and, buying into rental properties or something like that? And I very well could. Like, I'm in a position in which that I could buy a rental property, or at least put money down on a rental property. And I don't do it in my area because it's so damn expensive here. Astoria is the 10th most expensive place in the entire nation for populations 10 to 50,000 people. That scares the hell out of me for a first-time rental. There are so many other places in this country that I think it would be a better opportunity for that. But it doesn't mean that I can't buy into some position out there that is going to be an acquiring of assets, right? But I limit the ability to be nimble by buying a house. So again, if you are the type of person who is in the mindset of being 100% in assets and zero liabilities, renting ain't necessarily a bad thing, right? After 30 days, you can call it quits. You don't have to pay the entire 30 years of rent, right? You're just doing it for a short amount of time until you figure out what it is that you were really wanting to do or where you really needed to be. So, like, just to take on the idea is just like, oh, rent's a horrible idea, don't ever do it. Well, then you just limited yourself to all the possibilities of what it is that you could do by being 100% in assets and zero liabilities, or even just a 30-day liability by renting. If you don't see the advantage of being in that sort of position, then don't do it. But a lot of people would see the advantage of it, and I could see where somebody would have an advantage by doing that. All right. That's not it, man. It's you have no option. You can't afford to buy, so you're stuck renting. Well, that again is because people are, again, they're hoping and wishing and dreaming that their day job is going to be enough. That's not the blue collar individual who is planning on that working for them is going to have a very difficult time if they are not in the right location in the right job. Like, there's probably places in the nation that you could do that, and there's probably the right career that you could choose that would make it work. But for the most part, blue collar positions are not going to be very functional in this economy going forward. Taking on a blue collar job and then finding extra money, doing extra things, side hustles, business, online sales, doing something out there to try and figure out how to get extra money in is what the majority of the people are going to have to do. And think about it. There is a bunch of people who are already doing that. They are positioning themselves with that extra money that they are getting, and they are finding themselves as property owners and capitalists and all the other stuff that's happening out there that people are then wondering how it is that they are going to compete against. Right? That's because that's what's happening. Like, I think about myself. Like, I have side hustles. I do YouTube. I have a day job. I do so many other things to try and just trickle in little bits of money wherever I can. When I think about the people who are not doing that, like, they have to compete against somebody like me. And how many people out there are doing stuff like that? That's why one of the reasons why the blue collar person is going to have a very difficult time is because if they don't go out there and try to start a side business or a hustle or figure out some other way of making money out there, they're most likely going to have to just rely on that hourly wage, and there's not enough hours in a day. There's literally just not enough hours in a day to do it. I don't know what to say. It was just like, I wish it wasn't that way. I've been selling online for 10 years. It's already saturated. Yeah, but I agree and I disagree with this, right? Because I agree in the sense that there is so many people out there who have already done it. It's super saturated, right? But then again, how many times have you found an economist out there talking on YouTube? I mean, here it is. I'm in a space that essentially I really shouldn't be in, talking on a level that I really shouldn't have any kind of knowledge in, right? I mean, there's no point in all the study that I have done if I don't use it as far as a career and being a banker or CEO of some corporation or something like that. But I had such a fascination and such a desire to learn this information that once I had retained it and I started talking about it, I realized that the working class individual could really use this information to benefit themselves. And as I started delivering the information, I realized that even though I am in a saturated market of online content creators of economics, my delivery and my message and the one that I am bringing is resonating with the other working class blue collar individuals out there who are trying to learn this information for themselves, that I am now very in what I feel is a very unique position and a very unique message that is now delivered to a very unique group of people out there that can't be done by anybody else. I mean, sure, anybody can do this, but how many people out there are really going to learn this information from the ground up like somebody like I have done? You know, I'm not trying to brag myself up, because really it was the viewers of this channel that really guided me in the information that I now have. It really came from the viewers themselves here. It was like this symbiotic relationship that was built starting 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, right? Going on 2000, November of 2017. So yeah, it's been a amazing experience, but definitely the knowledge that has been learned here was built here on this channel with the viewers itself. Like, that doesn't happen. I mean, I didn't make it up, right? This was built right here. And again, like, I don't know if you can find this anywhere else, you know, no matter how many people are talking about economics. All right. Alrighty, guys. Time is, I got like another 5 minutes here. Kirk and I agree at this point. Homes should not be assets. Homes, well, whether they should be or shouldn't be, I don't know if that's really up to you. They are. That's all there is to it. And Cantillon described it from back in the day that there's no better sign of the abundance of money in a system than the rents and leases that people are paying out there. So yeah, I agree that, really they shouldn't be assets, but that's exactly what they are. They're assets. Right? They always have and they always will be. Land's an asset, gold's an asset, silver's an asset, Bitcoin's an asset, houses are assets. All the physical things that are out there that people could buy and possess and own, they're all assets, every one of them. So, unfortunately, when it comes to assets, there's going to be a concentration of them, and there's going to be a bunch of people out there who don't have access to it, who are wishing that they had access to it, and will beg and hope and plead and dream that there is going to be some sort of situation that comes up that gives them access to it, and they will come up with all kinds of theories. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of elected officials and leaders out there who will promise those people a situation in which that they are going to be able to acquire it. It's a hopeless proposition. It ain't gonna happen, right? Not until a complete collapse, right? Complete collapse, then you might have your option at doing it. But until then, you're gonna have to do what it is that the rich people are doing in order to acquire what it is that is going to be considered a property ownership or capitalistic position. Cutting back on your expenses, increasing your income, and then deploying that extra money towards something that's gonna have a return. One of the most important books ever written, Introduction to, what was it? Introduction to Essay of the Nature of Commerce. 4 years sober and started learning about finance for the first time on my life. 54 years old and learning as quick as I can. Well, Sober Stacker 71, it's great to hear that you've been sober for 4 years. And I tell you, that was the first thing that really changed my experience in my life, was sobering up. And I tell you, it wasn't a great experience when you first sober up, because once you start to step away from the alcohol-based consciousness into a sober-based consciousness, you really start to recognize the horribleness that you have been trying to cover up with the drinking. So, good for you to make it the 4 years. Most of the time after you get through 4 years, you really have a good shot of staying sober the rest of your life if you really are committed to that outcome. And generally, what I have found is that people after that 4 years, they really start to experience the better part of the sobriety, right? Because it takes a few years to kind of make up for your screwing up. And a lot of times when people get sober, they're thinking, oh man, everything is just going to be this wonderful, magical experience as soon as I sober up, right? And then they sober and then they realize, man, this is a horrible experience, right? Like, trying to deal with my life without the alcohol is very difficult. And so, like, the first year or two can be a very difficult struggle to get through it all. And there's really nothing pleasurable about it. And you're feeling very bored and anxious, and all the mental issues that are coming up that you're having to, deal with. But then after that, it really starts to seem like it gets brighter and better. There is this, like, it's a period. It's a period of essentially regrowth, or I don't know, like destruction and regrowth. Isn't fun, but it's definitely worth it. And when you're actually through it and it's all done, you're actually kind of glad you did it. Like, if it wasn't as hard as it was, then you may not have appreciated it as much as you do. All right. Can't rich people stay on the East and West Coast, stop moving to the other centers We like our home prices low. No, deplorable, they can't. That's exactly what they're going to do, is they're going to move into your cheap home, right? They're going to sell. This is what they're going to do. They're going to sell their $1.5 million home in some little crappy neighborhood over on the West Coast that is full of gang members and horribleness. And they're going to take their $1.5 million and they're going to come and buy your $300,000, beautiful 5-acre parcel and all the other stuff that's on it, with all these wonderful people all around with no crime and nothing else. And then they're going to have $1 million that they can spend like fools all over your neighborhood, changing the way that the experience is, because they are going to bring in their wants, their tastes, their likings, everything that they appreciate and wanted from back home. They're going to bring to you, and you're not going to like it because it isn't the things that you had growing up with. It's all this, weird stuff that they brought from wherever home that they had come from. And then they're going to have a whole new area for you to live in, and you won't be able to buy your house, and you're not going to recognize any of the people or none of the businesses or anything else around there. All the working class individuals will have left. That's what's going to happen. I know this because that's what's happened to Astoria. Right? We used to be loggers and fishermen here. That's it. And then loggers and fishermen, they don't buy the houses here anymore. Maybe out where, where I'm living, outside of town. But everything here is now retired, remote workers, hospital workers, all that other stuff. The working class individual, those who are loggers and fishermen and stuff like that, who used to be like the backbone of the economy around here, nah, not so much anymore. That was a time long ago. So no, expect the rich to sell their expensive place and come and screw your town up. Because that's how it works. That's how it goes. All right. But sports show team building, so does barn raising. All right. College is still okay if you go for free or dirt cheap. STEM degrees, at least public schools, since your taxes pay for it anyway. You've been audience captured, and we love it. All right. Oh, look, you scored something in the end zone. My situation doesn't change, therefore waste of money. Ben Shapiro loves it that way. Alrighty, guys, what time is it? I gots to go, man. It was so much fun. 238 people watching. Thank you so much for joining in on today's live stream. I really appreciate you guys hitting that thumbs up button. By hitting that thumbs up button, you'll get the YouTube algorithm to grab this video, spread it around for more people to join in on the conversation. I think it's very important to understand the Cantillon effect and how it is that we are in a position within the economy that is really not giving the average everyday working class individual that opportunity to then rise into the American dream. Why it's taken place, and then recognizing the effects of that, gives you the ability to then position yourself to deal with that accordingly, knowing that there's really nobody who's going to come in and fix that situation, and knowing the reasons why they can't come in and fix that situation, again, is going to give you that best opportunity possible. Studying the Cantillon effect is really it. There's a link down in the description to the Cantillon essay. You can buy it off of Amazon, but you do not have to buy the essay off of Amazon. You can get it for free at the Mises Institute. Just go and Google it for yourself. Cantillon essay on economic theory. It should pop right up. Go and download the PDF for free and read it at your leisure. Be sure and read the 3 chapters, Increase and Decrease of Money to the State, and the further reflections upon that topic. It's in part 2 of that essay, chapters 6, 7, and 8. So critical. If you read just those 3 chapters of the essay, it'll be very worth it. Go and download that essay for free off the Mises Institute. However, if you do click on the Amazon affiliate link, anything you put in your cart for the next 24 hours and then purchase within the next 30 days, I will also get a commission on. So it's a great way to give a little bit of, help and support to the Uneducated Economist, is literally by doing all the purchasing that off of Amazon like you would normally do. Just click on that affiliate link first, and then I will get a little commission off of all those wonderful things that you are buying for Christmas, for your family, for yourself, into the future. Just click on that affiliate link first and support the Uneducated Economist. And all the other social medias that I've been at, so trying to promote those as well. Patreon, been posting stuff at X, a lot of fun doing that. I'm not necessarily new to X, but I'm new to being back at X, and formerly known as Twitter anyway. being back there and kind of commenting and hanging out there, been pretty cool. So go check us out and, follow us over on X, where we're posting stuff there. All right, I guess that's enough self-promotion. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.